Yes, Doc.
Okay. A very good afternoon. Namaste to all of you present here. In the previous session, we studied about introduction to anatomy and physiology and the musculoskeletal system. Uh, Before I start today's session, that is the digestive system, its anatomy and physiology, I would like to hear from the previous session if you could recollect whatever you have done in the previous session.
In previous session, we had done the movements of joints of the bone. What is the names of the bone?
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
Yes, Doc, we learned about anatomy and physiology, and we learned that anatomy is the internal and external structures of the body, and physiology is basically the functions of those structures. And we also learned about the tendons and ligaments, and long bones, short bones, and the different joints in the body. Yeah, we learned about that, and yeah, sorry about that. I got the notes very, very late, so I couldn't go through the notes. I only received it like at about 8:30 this morning. So I didn't have time to really go through the notes, but that is basically what I remember. The ball and socket joint, which we have at the shoulder. We have the tarsals, which is the plain joint at the feet. We have pivot joint. I'm not sure, but is that maybe at the neck area with the vertebrae?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Yeah, I think that is that. I'm not sure what else, Doc. I can't really remember.
Okay, good.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, thank
Flat
you.
bones, rib cage. Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. Flat bones, rib cage.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Doc, if I may add, we have bones as well in the skull, which is called synarthrosis. They are immovable joints. Then we have the ampiarthrosis, which is bones of the spine, and they can partially move. And then we have the diarthrosis, which is freely movable joints, which is the knee joints. An example of that.
Perfect. Yes. So I'm happy that though anatomy and physiology is difficult, I'm happy that you are able to grasp it. Yes, with the same enthusiasm and interest. Moving on to the next session. Yeah, these are the contents of today's session. Okay. Now, digestive system. So when we talk or when we say digestive system, all of you may be aware that it is in concern with the digestion. Okay. Now, what all is included in the digestive system is it starts from the oral cavity, that is, it starts from the mouth and it ends up to the anus. That means it has an inlet, that is the oral cavity, that is the mouth, and the outlet, that is the anus, from where we pass our stool. Till from the mouth till the anus is the digestive system. Okay. Along with that, it has accessory organs like the pancreas and the liver, and also the salivary glands. Okay. So digestive system consists of the digestive tract, a tube extending from the mouth to the anus, and its associated accessory organs, primarily the glands. They are the endocrine gland, that is the liver and the pancreas, which secrete fluids into the digestive tract. Now, digestive tract is also called as alimentary tract or alimentary canal. Now, this the digestive system is also called as GI tract. So, GI refers to gastrointestinal tract. When we talk about GI, it is only when we say gastrointestinal, it only includes the stomach and intestines. So, but technically it is only stomach and intestine. But what you call in a colloquial way, when we say gastrointestinal system, it is the digestive system. Yes. So this here you see, this is the stomach, and here the system, this thing ends. Here the so this whole thing, this structure, what you can see is the stomach. This is the structure of the stomach, and this duodenum, jejunum, ileum, ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon. All this till the end of the descending colon is the intestine. So gastrointestinal tract. Gastrointestinal tract. Okay. Now digestive system, I said it comprises or starts from the oral cavity and ends up to the anus. Starts from the oral cavity and ends up to the anus. So it is starting from the mouth here. Okay. From the mouth, it goes to the pharynx and then esophagus, esophagus to the stomach. From the stomach, it goes to the duodenum, jejunum, then ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, then rectum, anus. So this whole big pipe extending from the mouth, okay, to the stomach, and then the small intestines, etc. Then the large intestine. This brown structure, what you can see, is the large intestine. Okay, this is the ascending colon. It's going up, ascending colon. It is going to the sides, transverse colon. It is coming down, descending colon. Then it ends up in the rectum and anus. Through the anus, it is the outlet. Okay, so digestive system comprises of a tubular structure which extends from the mouth till the anus, which extends from the mouth to the anus. Okay. Okay. The digestive system is more than 10 meters, that is 30 feet long from one end to the other. It is continuous, starts at the mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small and large intestine, and ending in rectum and anus. I will repeat these structures again. See here, it is starting at the oral cavity, then it is coming with the pharynx, then it is the esophagus. This whole tube is the esophagus. It's 25 centimeter long. It is esophagus. Then we have stomach. Everywhere there is continuity. There's no breakup. Then it is opening into the stomach. From the stomach, this here the stomach ends. Then you have this structure here, duodenum. Then you can see the structure, right? It is beneath this. It is beneath this. Okay, duodenum. Then we have jejunum. Then we have ileum. Then we have ascending colon. So this ascending colon is the large intestine. Duodenum, this C-shaped structure here, duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. These three together comprise of the small intestine. Then when we say ascending colon, this thing, transverse colon, and descending colon, this comes the large intestine. Ascending colon going up, transverse colon going to the sides, descending colon coming down. So these three together is the large intestine. Then we have rectum and the anus. Okay, I will repeat the parts again. Mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, duodenum, jejunum, ileum. Three together comprises the small intestine. Large intestine comprises of ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, rectum, anus. Okay, so this is the this is the gastrointestinal tract, or this is the digestive system, starting from the oral cavity, ending up to the anus. Now we have something called as accessory organs. We have something called as accessory organs. Okay, just parts of this: mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, rectum, and anal canal. Okay, see again, I'm repeating this again and again so that you remember the parts. So here we have our oral cavity, then we have pharynx, then we have this esophagus. See, you see esophagus is in continuous with the stomach, and here you can see this C-shaped structure. This C-shaped structure is the duodenum. Then we have this jejunum. Then after jejunum, here we have ileum. Ileum is going into the ascending colon. Then we have the transverse colon. Then we have the descending colon. So duodenum, jejunum, this brown structure. Duodenum, jejunum, ileum together forms the small intestine. Ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon forms the large intestine. Then we have, oh, and here, yeah, there's a structure here called the cecum. Cecum, ascending colon, transverse colon, and descending colon. Okay, these three together forms the large intestine. Then we have the rectum and anus. So these are the organs or parts involved in the digestive system. Moving on to the other organs, accessory organs of digestive system. These are not actually the organs of digestion, but they help in the digestion. They're essential for digestion. Okay. So here we have, this is the liver. A wedge-shaped organ. This is liver, a wedge-shaped organ. This is gallbladder, and this is the duodenum. We studied duodenum is a part of small intestine, and this is the pancreas. So we have two organs, that is the liver and pancreas, which are essential for the digestion. Okay, so this brown structure, what you can see, is the liver. The green structure, what you can see, is the gallbladder. Then we have pancreas. Okay, so yes, I have not told this, but your knowledge, I think all of you will be aware of this. Diabetes mellitus is a disease of which organ? That organ is here. Which organ?
The pancreas?
Very good. Diabetes mellitus is a disease of this organ, that is the pancreas. Very good. Next. Okay. Yes. So this pancreas fits into the duodenum, which is the first part of small intestine. It fits into the duodenum, that is the first part of the pancreas. All of you have heard about the gallbladder stones. Okay. If you haven't heard, so this is the gallbladder. This stores the bile. Okay. If there's any pathology, then the the bile becomes bile calculi. Okay, gallstones they are called as. Okay, so moving on to the previous image again.
Doc,
It
can I
starts
ask a
with,
question about the gallbladder stones? I know normally doctors, the allopathic doctors, if there's gallbladder stones, they remove the gallbladder. But according to Ayurveda, how can we release those stones without interfering or removing any organs?
no, see, there are some doctors who treat gallbladder calculi. They're giving medicines wherein they are trying to break the calculi size. But again, if it is more than 14 mm and all, then it becomes difficult to treat. Less than 10 mm calculi, they are able to handle it.
Okay, and then if we can't break that down, then what happens?
See, what happens is this gallbladder, this gallbladder has a narrow opening. It has a narrow opening. Then it will come and block in any of these pipes. It will come and block in any of these bile ducts. Once it blocks there, then you may experience jaundice. See, you can see this is a balloon-like structure. This balloon-like structure has a narrow opening. The calculi, if it moves from this balloon-like structure and sits into this narrow pipe, then it will block. Then it comes under cholelithiasis. Then you may see presentations like jaundice, etc.
Okay.
Now, I will repeat the structures again. After I repeat the structures, I want all of you to repeat the structures. At least one by one, you have to tell. Okay, starting with the mouth. Then we have pharynx, esophagus, stomach, duodenum. After stomach, we have duodenum, jejunum, ileum. These three together forms the small intestine. Then we have ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, large intestine. Then we have rectum and anus. Okay, all this together are the parts of digestive system. Anybody wants to repeat can repeat.
Okay, Doc, I can take a try. So we have the mouth, then we go into the pharynx, we go into the esophagus, the stomach. From the stomach, we go into the small intestine, the duodenum. Then into the small intestine, we have the jejunum and the ileum. The ileum combines to the large intestine with the cecum. Then we have the ascending colon. Is it ascending? Yeah, ascending colon. Then we have the descending colon. I mean, there's a transverse colon, and then we have the descending colon, and then going into the rectum, and and excretion into the anus. Yeah. Yes.
Perfect. Very, yes. Anybody else wants to answer? Reji, why have you raised your hand?
Hello. I'm sorry, I'm having some problems with my network here. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're audible.
I'm having a problem with Teams. Yeah, I can't even show. It's not showing anything here. Okay, now it's showing something.
Is there anybody else who is interested in answering?
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
Yes, Reji, you're audible. Yeah. So we'll move on to the next slide.
Oh. Sorry, I missed quite a bit here. I think I have had a problem with my network.
Okay, shall I continue? Okay. So next, moving on to the individual organs. Mouth or oral cavity is lined by mucous membrane containing mucus secreting glands. Okay. Next, we have tongue. It is a voluntary muscular structure. Let's forget about its attachment.
What's the question?
Yes, Reji. Hello. Okay. Functions of tongue. It helps in chewing, swallowing, speech, and taste. It helps in chewing the food, swallowing, speech, and taste. Teeth. Teeth are embedded in sockets. Yesterday we studied gomphoses of the mandible and maxilla. Okay, yesterday we studied the bone. We studied bone. Okay, so teeth. This is the maxilla and this is the mandible. Okay, so this is maxilla and this is the mandible. So maxilla lodges the upper what you call upper jaw, and the mandible lodges the lower jaw. Mandible lodges the lower jaw. Okay, so here we have two sets of teeth. One is the temporary teeth and the other one is the permanent teeth. Temporary teeth are also known as deciduous. They are 20 in number, 10 in each jaw, upper and lower jaw each. They begin to erupt at the age of 6 months and all are present at the age of 24 months, that is 2 years. Okay, shapes. Molars, premolars, canines, and incisors. Okay, so here the children, they don't have premolars, they just have molars. Molars, canines, and incisors. Molars, canines, and incisors. Next, permanent teeth. They are 32 in number and begin to replace the temporary teeth in the 6th year of age. It is usually completed by the 24th year. So we have molars, premolars, canines, and incisors. They are molars are 3, premolars are 2, canines are 1, incisors are 2. This you can just remember. One thing here is the temporary tooth. They are the first tooth to erupt and they fall off, and then the permanent tooth are erupted. Temporary tooth are 20, permanent tooth are 32. Temporary, they don't have premolars. In permanent, we have premolars. Okay, functions of teeth. Incisors and canines, they help in cutting. They have cutting surfaces and are used for biting of pieces of foods. Okay, you are biting a chapati. You are biting a chapati. That is with the help of incisors and canines. You are able to tear the chapati with the help of incisors. The premolars and molars have broad and flat surfaces and are used for chewing food. Okay, incisors and canines. Incisors and canines, they help in cutting and tearing, whereas premolars and molars help in chewing the food. Okay, so we studied about mouth as an organ, wherein we know that the oral cavity is lined by mucus membrane. Then we have tongue. Tongue is a muscular structure. What does tongue do? It helps in chewing, swallowing, speech, and taste. Next, we have teeth. Teeth, we have 2 sets of teeth. They are embedded in mandible and maxilla bone. Okay, mandible in the lower jaw, maxilla in the upper jaw. Okay, temporary teeth are 20 in number, premolars are not present. Permanent teeth are 32 in number. Okay, we have incisors and canines which help in tearing and cutting. We have premolars and molars which help in chewing. Next, we have salivary glands. So you can see the structure here. You can see the structure here of salivary glands. We have the parotid gland, submandibular gland, and sublingual gland. We have 3 glands: parotid, submandibular, and sublingual gland, and these secrete the saliva. About 1.5 liters of saliva is produced daily, and it consists of water, mineral salts, salivary amylase. Remember this, we will be coming across this in many other times in the future slides. Mucus, lysozyme, immunoglobulins, blood clotting factors. Okay, so saliva has water, salts, and certain enzymes like salivary amylase. Okay, so chemical digestion of polysaccharides. Okay, so saliva contains the enzyme salivary amylase, what we saw in the previous slide, that begins the breakdown of complex sugar, including starch, reducing them to disaccharides. Maltose. Okay, the optimum pH for the action of salivary amylase is 6.8. Salivary pH ranges from 5.8 to 7.4. 5.8 to 7.4. So one thing is it helps in the digestion of polysaccharides, that is the carbohydrates. It helps in the digestion of polysaccharides. Okay, it breaks the polysaccharides into simpler substances. Its important function is to break it into simpler substances. With what? With the salivary amylase as an enzyme. Salivary amylase as the enzyme. Give me a moment. Okay, salivary amylase as an enzyme. See, moving on to the previous slide here. See, salivary amylase, I said, is an important enzyme. It helps in breaking the polysaccharides and reducing them to smaller ones, that is disaccharides and maltose. Now, saliva, what does it do? It lubricates the fluid. Assuming you are eating a dry roti, that dry roti is lubricated with the saliva that's present in the oral cavity. Then once the saliva is mixed into it, it becomes a soft bolus. Then that is propelled or that is swallowed into the next organ. That is swallowed or pushed to the next part. next part. Okay. Now, this saliva, the amount of saliva present in the oral cavity keeps the oral cavity soft, moist, and pliable. It helps to prevent damage of the mucous membrane by rough or abrasive food. If the saliva wasn't present and if we had eaten the rough, dry food, then there was chances that the mucosa would have been ruptured. Mucosa would have been ruptured. The taste buds are stimulated only by chemical substances in solution, and therefore dry fruits only stimulate the sense of taste after thorough mixing with saliva. If we have to appreciate taste, okay, if we have to appreciate taste, it has to be in the form of it has to come in contact with the liquid. So the liquid is provided by the saliva. Only then we are able to appreciate the taste. So what are the functions of saliva is, it helps in reducing or breaking down the polysaccharides into disaccharides and maltose. It lubricates the food that which is being eaten. It helps us to appreciate the taste, and also it has the action of cleaning and lubricating. It has the action of cleaning and lubricating. Okay, pharynx. Pharynx is having three parts: nasopharynx, oropharynx, and laryngopharynx. We will study again pharynx in detail in the respiratory system. So just in brief, oropharynx and laryngopharynx are a part of the digestive system, This, from the mouth, it opens into the oropharynx and then to the laryngopharynx and then to the esophagus. Now, this esophagus, you can see, it starts from here and goes up to the top part of the stomach, This esophagus is about 25 centimeter long and about 2 centimeter in diameter. Okay, 25 centimeter long, 2 centimeter in diameter. It lies in just in front of the vertebral column and behind the trachea and the heart. Okay, so just for you to understand, esophagus is the continuation of the pharynx. It begins with pharynx and ends up in the stomach. That's all you can think. Begins in the pharynx and ends up in the stomach. So this whole thing is the structure of stomach. This is the structure of stomach. Now, this stomach is a J shape. Stomach is J shaped. You can see stomach is from here till here. This is again duodenum, and this is a part of esophagus. So stomach is basically a J-shaped dilated portion of the alimentary tract situated in the epigastric, umbilical, and left regions of abdominal cavity. Just remember that it's a muscular bag. It's a J-shaped muscular bag. Above it is continuous with the esophagus and below with the duodenum. See, again, the stomach is continuous with the esophagus at the cardiac sphincter. So here we will be seeing cardiac sphincter, and with the duodenum at the pyloric sphincter. Here we are seeing pyloric sphincter. Okay, so here above this is the esophagus, below this is the duodenum. Now, stomach is divided into three regions: fundus, body, and the antrum. So this is the fundus, this is the body, and this is the antrum. So stomach has three parts. One is the fundus. The top part is the fundus, middle part is the body, and the third part is the antrum. Follow my cursor. Okay, fundus, body, and antrum. Fundus, body, and antrum are the three parts of stomach. I repeat, stomach is the continuation of esophagus and it ends in the duodenum. It is J-shaped structure. It has three parts: fundus, body, and antrum. What does the function do? Okay, what does the stomach do? Any guesses, Mala Singh?
Okay, the stomach will store the food, and it will also help to break down proteins.
Very good. Yes. So it is helping in the storage of food, temporary storage of food, allowing time for the digestive enzyme pepsin to act. Okay, so enzyme digestion, pepsin converts protein to peptides. Your friend already answered. So see, whenever we come across a condition called as stomach wash, whenever we are doing a stomach wash or a gastric lavage, if the person has consumed poison and reached our hospital within 3 hours, then we do gastric lavage. Why? Because whatever you eat or whatever you take through oral cavity stays in the stomach for up to 3 to 4 hours. Up to 3 to 4 hours. So this temporary storage here refers to 3 to 4 hours. Okay, one thing. So it acts as a function. It is helpful in the storage of food. Storage of food. Then what does it do? It mechanical breakdown. What, see, it has 3 smooth layers which enable the stomach to act as a chur. It acts as a mixer. Okay, the food mixes with the gastric juice and it forms into a chyme. So one thing is it stores the food. The other thing is it is disintegrating the food particles. It is disintegrating the food particles by the churning action, and by mixing it with gastric juice, it forms a chyme. Okay. Next, enzyme digestion. So it has pepsin, which converts proteins into peptides. So we'll remember 3 functions. One is the storage of food. The other one is in the presence of pepsin, protein is converted into peptides, and also it is breaking down or it is disintegrating the food particles, mixing with the gastric juice, and it is forming a chyme. There is limited absorption of water, alcohol, and lipid soluble drugs. So we have proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids. So in that, stomach is concerned with the protein metabolism. Okay, specific defense is provided by the hydrochloric acid in the gastric juice. Certain microbes will be destroyed by the hydrochloric acid that's been secreted from the gastric juice. Okay, production of and secretion of intrinsic factor needed for absorption of vitamin B12 in the terminal ileum. Okay, regulation of passage of gastric contents into the duodenum. Yes, since stomach has to push the contents to the next part, it will push the contents into the next part, that is the duodenum. Okay, what is this gastric juice made up of? It is made up of water, 99.5%. So 0.5% it's having solids. So what are these? Organic substances like pepsin, renin, gastric lipase, gelatinase, urease, mucus, intrinsic factor, and these. Okay, so let's see a few functions of this gastric juice. Pepsin will convert proteins into peptides only in the presence of hydrochloric acid. Next, all the enzymes are presenting when there is an acid media. Gastric lipase converts triglycerides into fatty acids and glycerols. Gastric amylase converts starch into dextrin and maltose. Gelatinase will convert gelatin and collagen of meat into peptides. Urease will convert urea into ammonia. But you can just remember that pepsin converts proteins into peptides. Okay. Hemopoietic function. So one function is with respect to the digestion. The other function is with respect to the hemopoietic. Hemopoietic is formation of blood. Intrinsic factor of Castle, secreted by parietal cells of gastric glands, play an important role in erythropoiesis. So there is a substance that's secreted that helps in the formation of RBCs. We have 3 types of cells. RBC, blood cells. One is RBC, another one is WBC, the other one is platelet. RBCs, WBCs, and platelets. RBCs are called as erythrocytes, WBCs are called as leukocytes, platelets are called as thrombocytes. I repeat. We have 3 blood cells, RBCs, WBCs, and platelets. RBCs are called as erythrocytes, WBCs are called as leukocytes, platelets are called as thrombocytes. So what does this do? The intrinsic factor of Castle secreted by the parietal cells of gastric glands, they help in formation of RBCs. Erythropoiesis is nothing but formation of RBCs. It is necessary for the absorption of vitamin B12 from GI tract into the blood. So there is vitamin B12 which is present, that has to be absorbed into the from the GI tract into the blood. And vitamin B12 is an important factor for erythropoiesis. Absence of intrinsic factor in gastric juice causes deficiency of vitamin B12, leading to one type of anemia, that is pernicious anemia. Okay. Next, protective function. Function of mucus is a mucoprotein secreted by mucous neck cells of the gastric glands and surface mucous cells in body and other parts of stomach. It protects the gastric wall by the following ways. Protects the stomach wall from irritation or mechanical injury by virtue of its high viscosity. So, the mucus which is present in the stomach, it prevents the irritation. It prevents the irritation to the layers of stomach. Prevents the irritation to the layers of stomach. Simply, it is like a coating over the stomach. The mucus acts like a coating over the stomach and prevents injury to the structures of stomach. Prevents the digestive action of pepsin on the walls of stomach, particularly the gastric mucosa. If the mucus was not there, then the pepsin enzyme would have acted on the walls of the stomach itself. So, pepsin which is present is helpful in breaking down the proteins. Otherwise, it would have broken down the walls of the stomach. So, we have three functions. One is the digestion. It is helpful in breaking down the proteins. The other one, it is helpful in the formation of red blood cells or the erythropoiesis. And also, it is essential for the absorption of vitamin B12. If there was absorption or deficiency of vitamin B12, patient would have suffered from pernicious anemia. And also, third one, protective function. Protective function. It protects the walls of the gastrium or the walls of the stomach. Okay. And also prevents the action of pepsin over the walls of the stomach. Now, functions of hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid is also a content of gastric juice. It activates pepsinogen into pepsin. We studied in the previous slide that pepsinogen is converted. Pepsin is active in the only in the presence of hydrochloric acid. Okay, so pepsin is active in the only in the presence of hydrochloric acid. Activates pepsinogen into pepsin. See, hydrochloric acid will convert pepsinogen into pepsin. This pepsin will convert the proteins into amino acids, or it will break down the proteins. Kill some of the bacteria entering the stomach along with food substances. This action is called as bacteriolytic action. Provides acid medium which is necessary for the action of hormones. Okay, important, hydrochloric acid converts pepsinogen into pepsin. This pepsin will further act on the proteins, and it has bacteriolytic action. It kills certain bacteria, and it provides acid medium which is necessary for the action of hormones. It is necessary for the action of hormones. Okay, I will repeat. Stomach. Stomach is a J-shaped structure. It is muscular organ. J-shaped structure. It is a muscular organ. It starts once the esophagus ends, the stomach begins, and the stomach ends and the duodenum starts. Okay, so superiorly it is the stomach, inferiorly it is the duodenum. It is a J-shaped structure. It is a bag-like structure. It is having three parts. One is the fundus, second is the body, third is the antrum. So fundus, body, and the antrum are the three parts. Now this stomach has different functions. Important function is it stores food. It stores the food for 3 to 4 hours. Next, what does it do? Because of its muscle layers, it will disintegrate the food. It will disintegrate the food along with the gastric juice and make it into a chyme and push it into the duodenum. It has certain enzymes. It has certain enzymes like pepsin, which is active only in the presence of hydrochloric acid and converts proteins to peptides. Then the gastric juice also has erythropoietic function, that is formation of RBCs. It is necessary for the absorption of vitamin B12, and if there was absence of vitamin B12, person would have suffered from pernicious anemia. It's a disease. And next, we have mucus in the gastric juice. This mucus, what does it do? It prevents the injury to the gastric walls, and also if this wasn't there, then the pepsin would have destroyed the gastric wall instead of converting the proteins into simpler substances. Okay. Yes, so that was in brief about stomach. Does anybody wants to say something about stomach?
So, Doc, Just a question. The hydrochloric acid, we know that it's very, very acidic, right? So the mucus helps to protect the stomach lining so that also from the hydrochloric acid.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Now we
Okay,
have
so yeah. Okay, just a question, right? Knowing that our stomach is so acidic with HCl, right? How is it that we suffer from acidity, uh, with the pH? And how do we balance that?
see whenever you have the urge to eat, whenever you have the hunger, you are supposed to provide the body with food. You are supposed to provide the body with food. If that is not provided, if it is not provided, we have acute gastritis and chronic gastritis. If it is acute gastritis, then it will be just the mucosal layer which is injured. But if it becomes chronic, then there will be ulcers formed in the stomach. Then there will be ulcers formed in the stomach. If the food is not provided to the stomach when it is hungry, then it will start digesting the layers of the stomach.
Okay. Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
So whatever antacids we are taking, they are taken to neutralize the HCl. They are taken to neutralize the gastric juices. Okay,
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
welcome. The small intestine can be divided into three major regions. So this one region here is the duodenum. Then we have the upper part, that is the jejunum. Then we have the terminal part, that is the ileum. Then we have the terminal part, that is the ileum. So small intestine has three parts, that is the duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. What you can see here, this part is the stomach. What you can see here is that this part is the stomach. Stomach opens itself into the duodenum. This is the duodenum. Then we have the jejunum. Then we have the ileum. Now here what you can see this light colored structure. That is nothing but the pancreas. So here is the pancreas and here is the pancreas. So pancreas is posterior to the stomach. Just underneath the stomach you can see pancreas. Just underneath the stomach you can see pancreas. So this is pancreas. So this whole structure is the duodenum. Then we have the jejunum. Then we have the ileum. Ileum again goes into the cecum. Ileum goes into the cecum. Okay. So small intestine comprises of three parts: duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. Okay. Among the three parts, duodenum, jejunum, and ileum, duodenum is the smallest. Among the three parts, duodenum is the smallest. Jejunum is the middle part of intestine, is the primary site of nutrient absorption. It measures around 3 feet in length. Ileum is the final part of the small intestine that empties into the large intestine via the ileocecal sphincter. Ileum is about 6 feet. Okay. The small intestine is a part of gastrointestinal tract. Small intestine is long, highly convoluted. It is thrown into folds. It is thrown into folds that absorbs about 90% of the nutrients from the food we eat. It absorbs the nutrients. It is given the name small intestine because it's only 1 inch in diameter, making it less than half the diameter of the large intestine. So here, when we talk about the length of the small intestine, when we talk about the length of a small intestine, when we talk about the length, it is larger or it is longer than the large intestine, but we call it a small intestine because of its diameter. Because of its diameter. The small intestine is, however, about twice the length of the large intestine and usually measures about 10 feet in length. It is about 10 feet in length. Okay. So we have duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. Duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. Duodenum is the smallest, jejunum is next, ileum is the longest. Okay, so the small intestine is around a 10 feet in length, and we call it a small intestine because of the diameter. Diameter is just 1 inch in diameter, which is 1 inch in diameter, whereas larger intestine is much wider in diameter. It is thrown into multiple folds. It is thrown into multiple folds. Okay. Now it is having 4 layers. It is having 4 layers, that is mucosa, submucosa, muscularis, and serosa. Mucosa is the innermost layer. Mucosa is the innermost layer and is specialized for the absorption of nutrients from the chyme. Chyme was pushed from the stomach. Chyme was pushed from the stomach. Submucosal layer, it is next to or it is after the mucosal layer. it is having the blood supply and the nerve supply. Muscular layer, several layers of muscles are there that contract and moves the small intestine. It helps in the movement of small intestine. Serosa, it forms the outermost layer of the epithelial cells that is continuous with the mesentery and surrounds the intestine. It surrounds the intestine. It surrounds the intestine. So we have mucosal layer first, then so it is what we are studying here is from inside out. From inside out. Hope you can get it. From inside out. Okay. Example. Okay, how we are studying this is when we are whenever we are opening the cabbage, it is outside to inside. Okay, opening a cabbage. Okay, Mala, are you familiar with cabbage?
Yes, doc. Yes.
So when we are opening the cabbage for chopping, for using it, we are opening it from outside within. But here I'm telling you from within, from inside to outside. Okay. So mucosa is the innermost layer. Then we have submucosa. Then we have muscularis. Then we have serosa. Serosa. Okay. Serosa is the outermost layer of the epithelial cells that is continuous with the mesentery and surrounds the intestines. Now, what does this small intestine do? Mixing movements of small intestine help in the thorough mixing of chyme with the digestive juices like succus entericus, pancreatic juice, and bile. Now what happens? Till now, we saw that in the stomach, there was the gastric juice that was acting on it. Now here, when it comes into the intestine, there is succus entericus, that is the secretion from the small intestine. Then we have pancreatic juice that is secreted from the pancreas. Then we have the bile that is secreted from the liver and the gallbladder. Now so here there's mixing of three things: from the fluid from the small intestine, from the pancreatic juice, and also from the bile. Now we have to study here that there are certain openings, and through that openings all these get mixed up. Okay, I don't think I have put that image. Okay, there are openings, through that these secretions come into contact. Completion of chemical digestion of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats in the electrolytes of the villi. Okay, so we have proteolytic enzymes, that is peptides into amino acids. So proteolytic enzymes here convert the peptides into amino acids. Amylolytic enzymes, they convert lactase, sucrase, and maltase, the disaccharides, into molecules of monosaccharides. So here peptides are broken down into amino acids. Okay, proteins are broken down to peptides in the previous stage. So here peptides into amino acids. Then we have disaccharides, which are converted into monosaccharides. We have disaccharides, which are broken down into monosaccharides. So here dextrinase converts dextrin, maltose, and maltose into glucose. We have lipolytic enzymes, that is the fats. Okay, intestinal lipase acts on the triglycerides and converts them into fatty acids. Next, intrinsic factor of Castle present in the intestine plays an important role in erythropoiesis. There also we saw that it had an important role in erythropoiesis. It is also necessary for absorption of vitamin B12. Next, small intestine secretes many hormones such as secretin and cholecystokinin. These hormones regulate the movement of GI tract and secretory activities of small intestine and pancreas. Okay, so here important thing is there is we have three substances that are released. One is the succus entericus, which is the liquid from the small intestine. Then we have pancreatic juice from the pancreas. Then we have the bile from the liver, or the stored bile from the gallbladder. These three come into picture. Now all these three together, what they do, they have an action of protein, where the peptides are broken down into amino acids, and where the disaccharides are broken down into monosaccharides, and also where the intestinal lipase acts on triglycerides and converts it into simple fatty acids. Next, again, it has a role in erythropoiesis. Next, it has certain hormones like cholecystokinin, which regulates the movement of GI tract and also helps in the secretion of the juices from the small intestine and pancreas. pancreas. Okay, is this clear? Shall I go to the next slide? Next, moving on to large intestine. Next, we have large intestine. Large intestine consists of the cecum, the ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, sigmoid colon, rectum, and anus. Sigmoid colon, rectum, and anus. Okay, cecum, ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, sigmoid colon, rectum, and anus. Large intestine, posterior section of the intestine, consisting typically of 4 regions: cecum, colon, rectum, and anus. Large intestine is wider and shorter than the small intestine, approximately 1.5 meters or 5 feet. It begins in the right iliac region of the pelvis, just at or below the waist, where it is joined to the end of the small intestine. It then continues up the abdomen across the width of the abdominal cavity and then ends in the anus. So here, large intestine, we have cecum, ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, sigmoid colon, rectum, anus. All these together comprises of the large intestine. This is called as large intestine because of its diameter, because of its wider diameter, because of its wider diameter. All of you have come across something called as appendicitis. Has anyone who has come across appendicitis?
Yes, doc, we have.
Yes. So here in the cecum, you will see appendix. Here is the cecum, you will see appendix. When there is an infection or when there is an inflammation of this appendix, then the condition is called as appendicitis. Then the condition is called as appendicitis. Okay. Now, this is cecum. This cecum. So here you can see the appendix. Okay. This cecum is the first part of the colon or the large intestine and is a dilated portion which has a blind lower end and is continuous above with the ascending colon. This further continues as ascending colon. Just below the junction of the two, the ileocecal valves open. This is another concern. So one thing is the cecum is a part of the large intestine or the first part of the large intestine. It continues above as the ascending colon, and we have appendix also in this area. The vermiform appendix. The vermiform appendix is a fine tube closed at one end, which opens out of the cecum about 2 cm below the ileocecal valve. It is usually about 13 cm long and has the same structure as the walls of the colon, but contains more lymphoid tissues. So this appendix is 13 cm long, okay, and it is in relation to the cecum. If there is an infection or an inflammation to this, then the condition is known as appendicitis. This is in the right side of the body, right part of the body, right iliac fossa, it is present. Okay. Now, the ascending colon passes upwards from the cecum to the level of the liver, where it bends acutely to the left at the right colic flexure to become the transverse colon. So here I'll show you the image. So this cecum continues as ascending colon. Here, where the liver is, there it will bend, there it will bend, and it will become transverse colon. Now here, again this transverse colon will bend. Here there is liver organ, here there is spleen organ. So here again it bends and it forms the descending colon. Okay, here you can see to some extent. So this is the cecum, ascending colon. Ascending colon is bending here. This structure, what you can see is the liver. Then it is taking it's becoming transverse colon. Where transverse colon is bending and becoming descending colon, there it is the spleen. It is the spleen. Transverse colon is about 50 cm in length and passes across the abdomen to the undersurface of the spleen, where it forms the left colic flexure by bending acutely downwards to become the descending colon. The descending colon is about 25 centimeter length and passes down the left side of the abdomen to the inlet of the lesser pelvis, where it becomes the sigmoid colon. The sigmoid colon continues to the rectum. Rectum is about 12 centimeter long and is a slightly dilated portion of the colon. It leads from the pelvic colon and terminates to the anal canal. So it is here, all you can see is the connections. What you can see is they're all interconnections. Cecum further continues as ascending colon. Ascending colon takes a bend at the liver, and this is the right side. This you can see is the right part of the body. This is the left part of the body. This is right colic flexure. Okay, then this right colic flexure continues as transverse colon. Here there is spleen. So here there is a bend. This is the left colic flexure, and it is continuing as descending colon. Sigmoid colon is the sac. Okay, and it also stores the fecus. Sigmoid colon further continues as rectum. Rectum continues as anus. Yeah. Next, the anal canal is a short canal about 3.8 centimeter long in adults and leads from the rectum to the outlet, that's the anal virgin. There are two sphincter muscles which controls the anus. The internal sphincter surrounds the upper 3/4 of the canal and consists of smooth muscle fibers. The external sphincter consists of striated muscles. It's the tone of these sphincters which keep the anal canal and the anus closed. See, sometimes what happens with aging is they are not able to control the urge of defecation. They are not able to control the urge of defecation. So that time it is these sphincters which have lost their their capacity to function as the sphincters. Sphincters are nothing but they are structures like rubber bands. Sphincters are structures like rubber bands, which if they are functioning normally, they help in keeping the anal canal closed. But if they lose their activity, if they lose their what you call elasticity, then they become lax. Okay, so it is these sphincters which help in keeping the anus closed, Functions of large intestine. Functions are absorption. Large intestine plays an important role in the absorption of various substances like water, electrolytes, organic substances like glucose, alcohol, drugs like anesthetic agents, sedatives, and steroids. We should remember that alcohol was not being absorbed by the stomach. Okay. So absorption, it has an absorption in absorbing alcohol, organic substances like glucose, water, etc. Next, secretion. Colon has only one secretion, okay, and mucin, which lubricates the feces and facilitates their passage through the rectum and anus. So here we have mucin, which lubricates the feces and helps in propelling it to the next structure, that is the rectum and anus. Digestion. Many bacteria are present here which act on various food residues which have not been digested or absorbed in the small intestine. Next, formation of feces. After the absorption of nutrients, water and other substances, the unwanted substances in the large intestine form fecus. So we should understand that whenever the food is provided, so food is disintegrated and absorbed. Whatever is not absorbed is converted into fecus. Stored in the sigmoid colon. Whenever there is an urge, it is evacuated through the rectum and anus. Okay. So one thing is it is helping in the absorption, and the mucin which is secreted from it, it lubricates the fecus and delivers or propels into the rectum and anus. Next, formation of feces. This formed fecus are eliminated out through the rectum and anus. Okay, and it also helps in excretion. That means throwing out of certain heavy metals like mercury, lead, bismuth, arsenic, etc. It throws them out through the fecus. Next, Bacterial flora of large intestine synthesizes folic acid, vitamin B12, and vitamin K. By this function, large intestine contributes in the formation of RBCs and a blood clotting mechanism. We should always remember that vitamin K is essential for blood clotting. Vitamin K is essential for blood clotting. So, to summarize the functions, it helps in absorption of certain contents like water, alcohol, drugs, and yes, the secretion of mucin lubricates the fecus. It helps in digestion. The formed fecus are excreted out, and there is, along with the fecus, there is excretion of certain heavy metals. And that also has an important function in the formation of RBCs. And also because of the vitamin K absorption, it is helping in blood clotting mechanism. So that completes the gastrointestinal system. Any doubts?
Doc, just a question. If a patient is suffering from constipation, right? And the fecus is at the large intestine ready to be excreted out of the system and it cannot. What happens in that case? Does the toxins or things filter right through the entire body? The excess water that's there, does it go back into the system? Can you please explain that?
See, whenever there is fecus that's formed and it is not ready to be expelled out, see, one thing is the fecus has to be lubricated. See, for patients with constipation, we always ask them to take large amount of water. So when there is large amount of water, that means the fecus is not hard. Okay. Once the fecus is not hard, it is soft. It is easy to be evacuated out. First point. Next, if fecus which is formed properly, but there is no propulsive movements of the large intestine. See, this intestine has a motility. If that motility of the intestine is not correct, again there is no chance of it expelling out. So we need to understand what is the pathology there. Is it the hard stool, or is it that the stool consistency is correct, but the propulsive action or the peristaltic action of the large intestine isn't that taking properly? See, peristaltic action, what it does, it is alternate contractions and relaxations of the intestine. Alternate contractions and relaxation. When there are alternate contraction and relaxation, the fecus is moved from one part to the other. Next, once if the water content is less, then again the fecus will become hard. So we need to understand which of these and accordingly address. Sometimes what happens, the fecus is formed and it is in the waiting, or it is stored in the sigmoid colon. Okay. Then what we do, then we give rectal suppositories, wherein that the formed fecus is immediately expelled out. Whenever we are giving stool softeners like cremafin, etc., there we are making the hard stool into soft mass and trying to expel it out.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to the next one, liver. Okay, so here we studied that there are accessory organs which help in the digestion. So here we have liver. Okay, so this liver is a wedge-shaped organ. It is pinkish to reddish in structure, and what we can see here, the green structure is the gallbladder. Here, what we can see, the green structure is the gallbladder. Liver is the second largest organ in the human body. So first largest organ we have studied, that is the skin. The largest organ is the skin. After that, the largest organ is the liver. Okay, and so it is the second largest organ, and it is the largest gland. It is the largest gland, weighing about 1.5 kg. It is the largest gland, weighing about 1.5 kg. It lies under the diaphragm in the right upper abdomen and mid abdomen and extends to the left upper abdomen. Just remember that it is the right part of the body just below the diaphragm. Right part of the body below the diaphragm. The liver is wedge shaped with its base to the right and apex to the left. It is pinkish brown in color with a soft consistency, highly vascular, easily friable. Okay, it is pinkish brown in color. It is soft in consistency. It is having a good blood supply. Functions of liver. One of the important function of liver is secretion of bile. Secretion of bile. Liver secretes bile, which contains bile salts, bile pigments, cholesterol, fatty acids, and lecithin. So this function of bile is mainly due to the bile salts. Okay. So what we should understand is bile salts are required for digestion and absorption of fats in the intestine. Bile salts are required for digestion and absorption of fats in the intestine. Now this bile helps to carry away waste products and break down fats which are excreted through feces and urine. Okay. Now one thing, two important things to remember here. So the bile which is secreted has bile salts and bile pigments. In that, bile salts have an important role in digestion and absorption of fats. Digestion and absorption of fats. So important function of this is the emulsification of fat. Emulsification of fat is the process by which the fat globules are broken down into minute droplets and made in the form of a milky fluid called emulsion in small intestine by the action of bile salts. So bile salts, what they do, they disintegrate the fat globules and break them into a smaller structures. Break them into smaller structures. That is the function of bile salts. Next, we have lipolytic, that is lipid soluble or lipid breakable enzymes in GI tract, which cannot digest the fats directly because the fats are insoluble in water due to the surface tension. Bile salts emulsify the fats by reducing the surface tension due to their detergent action. Due to the detergent action. Now the fats can be easily see. Once the bile salts break down, then the lipolytic enzymes have the role to help in the digestion of lipids. Help in the digestion of lipids. Next, we have absorption. Bile salts help in the absorption of digested fats from intestine into blood. Bile salts combine with fats and make complexes of fat called micelles. The fats in the form of micelles can be easily absorbed. So, bile salts, they break the lipid molecules into smaller structures. The smaller structures, once it is broken down into smaller structures, then the lipolytic enzymes which are present in GI, the gastrointestinal tract, they act over them and they help in further reduction. Next, absorption. So bile salts also help in absorption, wherein they combine with fats and form structures called as micelles. This micelles, they are in a form which is readily absorbable. They are in a form which is readily absorbable. Excretory function. Now, for digestion and absorption, we needed bile salts. Now we have bile pigments. So these bile pigments are the major excretory products of the bile. Other substances excreted in bile are heavy metals like copper and iron, some bacteria like typhoid bacteria, toxins, cholesterol, and lecithin. Storage function. Many substances like glycogen, amino acids, iron, folic acids, vitamin A, B12, and D are stored in liver. Synthetic function. Liver produces glucose by gluconeogenesis. So liver stores glucose in the form of glycogen. Whenever there is necessity, this glycogen is broken down and reduced to glucose and released. So one thing what we need to understand, liver secretes the bile. The bile has bile salts and bile pigments. Bile salts have a role in emulsification of fat and absorption of fat. Bile pigments have a role in the excretion. Bile salts have a pigment in the bile pigments have a role in the excretion. It has a storage function. It also converts the glycogen into glucose. Now, next, we saw a balloon-like structure called the gallbladder. called the gallbladder. This gallbladder, this balloon-like structure, it stores the bile. It stores the bile. The bile is continuously secreted from liver, but it is released into intestine only when needed. And most of the bile is stored in gallbladder till it is required. Once there is storage of bile, there is concentration of bile, there's alteration of pH of bile. The bile is concentrated while it is stored in the gallbladder. Bile is concentrated when it is stored in the gallbladder, and also the pH of the bile decreases when it is stored in the gallbladder from 8 to 8.6 to 7 to 7.6, and it becomes less alkaline when it is stored in the gallbladder. So gallbladder mainly acts as the storehouse of the bile, concentration of bile, and alteration of pH of bile. Next, moving on to important endocrine gland, the pancreas. Pancreas, so here you can see it has four parts.
Doc, sorry, can I just ask a question? Why does the pH change from the gallbladder, from the liver to the gallbladder?
See, why does it changes? What you call the environment in the gallbladder helps in changing. Environment in the gallbladder helps in changing it. And again, when it is to be secreted, again the pH will be increased. Again, the pH will be increased.
Okay. Okay.
Next.
Thank you.
Pancreas. Pancreas is basically a soft tissue. It's a soft structure. It is having 4 parts: head, neck, body, and tail. So what you can see, this structure is nothing but the duodenum. Here, if we continue, it is the stomach. Then this is the first part of the small intestine, that is the duodenum. Pink structure is the duodenum. Then this is the jejunum. And what you can see here is the gallbladder. Here it is the gallbladder. Gallbladder is opening into the small intestine, that is the duodenum. Okay, functions of the pancreatic juice. Digestive function of pancreatic juice. Pancreatic juice plays an important role in the digestion of proteins and lipids. It also has mild digestive action on carbohydrates. So major action is on the proteins and lipids. Major proteolytic enzymes of pancreatic juice are trypsin and chymotrypsin. Trypsin is the most powerful proteolytic. So trypsin is the one which helps in the major digestion of proteins. Trypsin is the one which has major effect on the proteins. Now, so in this, we have an endopeptidase and breaks the interior bonds of the protein molecules and converts proteins into proteoses and polypeptides. So just remember, we studied that the bile juice secreted, the bile salts have an action on the lipids. Bile salts have an action on the lipids, whereas the pancreatic juice has an action on the proteins. The pancreas has an action on the proteins and lipids. Okay, so basic thing to remember, the trypsin and chymotrypsin are the enzymes which are having a role. Trypsin and chymotrypsin are the enzymes which have a role in breaking down the proteins. Okay, next, digestion of lipids. Pancreatic lipase. So here it is the pancreatic lipase which is having a major role in breaking down the lipids. Pancreatic amylase is the enzyme which is present in pancreatic juice, like salivary amylase. The pancreatic amylase converts starch into dextrin and maltose. Okay, so coming to the last part of the slide. So we have completed the different anatomical parts of the gastrointestinal system or of the digestive system, and also we have studied the accessory organs. My question to all of you is, which are the accessory organs that are needed for the digestion? Which are the accessory organs that are needed for the digestion?
Your liver, your gallbladder. Which other ones? Liver, gall. Spleen. Is the spleen also required? Yeah.
No, pancreas.
No. Oh, pancreas, yes. Liver, yes. Liver, gall, yes. Pancreas, yes. Okay.
And pancreas also, right?
Yeah, pancreas, she said that.
Yes.
Parts of the small intestine. Which are the parts of the small intestine?
The ileum and the jejunum.
Correct. You have missed one part. I will show the image. What is this?
Yeah.
This continues as jejunum. Anybody else wants to add on?
Duodenum.
Very good. Duodenum, jejunum, and ileum are parts of the small intestine. Which is the last part? Which is the last part of digestive system?
It will come through the sigmoid colon
Mm,
and to the rectum and the anus.
very good. Very good. Which is the first part of the gastrointestinal system or the digestive system?
Will that be the mouth?
Perfect. See, stomach has two connections, one at the top and one at the bottom. Which are those two connections?
That will be the duodenum on the top.
Duodenum at the bottom.
Duodenum. This is the cecum.
Esophagus at the top. Let's show
Oh, yes,
the
yes, 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 esophagus, yes. Okay. Esophagus and duodenum.
image here. This is the stomach. Here it is the esophagus at the top and duodenum at the bottom. Good.
Yes.
Good, Mala. I'm happy with your understanding and progress. So here's the stomach. This is the duodenum. Appendix is present to the right or left side of the body.
Right side.
Perfect. Liver is also present to the right side of the body. Okay, we have last part that may be a little difficult for you to understand, but just since it's there in the syllabus, I'll be explaining. Mechanism of absorption of different biomolecules. So we have seen certain enzymatic actions. Now again, a little more deeper into it. Carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. Now this carbohydrates, we have simple carbohydrates and complex. Okay, simple are the monosaccharides and disaccharides. Simple in monosaccharides, fructose, glucose, galactose. Disaccharides, sucrose, maltose, lactose. So in starch, cellulose, glycogen, amylose, amylopectin. Cellulose is not for humans. Okay. Now, how are these, what do you call, carbohydrates acted upon by the enzymes? Okay. So in the mouth, we have saliva. Salivary amylase acts on it. Okay. And it breaks down the polysaccharides into disaccharides. So it breaks down the polysaccharides into disaccharides. So salivary amylase, we studied that. It's one of the enzymes secreted in the oral cavity. Next. In the stomach, we have gastric juice, where the gastric amylase, here this amylase action is very weak. We studied that. Next, small pancreatic juice, pancreatic amylase. It breaks down the polysaccharides into disaccharides. That's the dextrin, maltose, and maltose. Similar action of salivary amylase and pancreatic amylase. Next, small intestine will secrete succus entericus. In that we have sucrase, wherein the sucrose is converted into glucose and fructose. Now here, disaccharides are converted into monosaccharides. Disaccharides are converted into monosaccharides. Maltose and maltose into glucose. Okay, so we have salivary amylase and pancreatic amylase, where the polysaccharides are converted into disaccharides. Next, we have the succus entericus secretions, which convert the disaccharides into monosaccharides. So further it is simplified. Further simplification. Polysaccharides to disaccharides, polysaccharides to disaccharides. Then we have disaccharides are converted into monosaccharides. Now, how is this absorbed? Carbohydrates are absorbed from the small intestine as monosaccharides. So, however, if they are polysaccharides, they have to be broken down into disaccharides, and from disaccharides broken down into monosaccharides. Glucose is transported from the lumen of small intestine, epithelial cells of small intestine via facilitated diffusion to portal vein, transported into blood. Okay, so now we have a polysaccharide. It's broken into disaccharide. Disaccharide is further converted into monosaccharide by succus entericus. Now, once it is broken down from the lumen of small intestine, it is taken up via diffusion. Diffusion is a form of a transport wherein it is transported through a semi-permeable membrane. It's a process. So there it is taken into, or it is taken through the portal vein. That's one more structure. Okay. Galactose is similar to glucose, fructose via facilitated diffusion. So we have glucose, galactose, and fructose. These are the basic structures. So this galactose is also absorbed like the glucose. Fructose also is absorbed like the glucose through the facilitated diffusion. It's a form of diffusion wherein there's a need for the semi-permeable membrane. Some molecules are converted to glucose and absorbed. So one thing what you should understand is, for a carbohydrate to be absorbed, we need to understand that it has to be broken down into the smallest form, that is the simplest form, that is the fructose, glucose, or galactose. Only when it is in these three forms we are able to get it absorbed. When it is in the form of starch, or when it's in the form of glycogen, then we have salivary amylase and pancreatic amylase, which act and break them into disaccharides. Then in succus entericus, we have certain enzymes which will break down the disaccharides into monosaccharides. Once they're in the form of monosaccharides, they are absorbed from the small intestine. Now I have a question here. Whenever we have athletics, yesterday we had some question regarding the sprinting and etc. Whenever we have athletics, why is that we are given glucose powder? Why isn't that we are not given some sweets which are formed? Sweets also give energy, glucose powder also gives energy. Why is that we are only given glucose powder?
Because maybe it is the simplest form that will be able to digest into the body immediately into the bloodstream and give off energy.
Yes, very good. It is because of this reason only. So whenever we have patients who become hypoglycemic, whose blood sugar levels come down, so immediately glucose powder is given. Why? Because it is the simplest form of a carbohydrate. It is the simplest form of carbohydrate, and hence it is easily absorbable. Very good. Now, next, protein. Milk, fish, egg, meat, wheat, soybean, pulses, etc., are the sources of proteins. Now, again, how these proteins are digested. In the mouth, there is no much action on the proteins. Stomach, pepsin converts proteins into polypeptides or the proteases, peptones, etc. Pancreatic juice, we studied trypsin and chymotrypsin act, and they convert into dipeptides, tripeptides, and polypeptides. Then we also studied about carboxypeptidases. Next, succus entericus, dipeptidase acts on dipeptides and converts into amino acids. One thing you should always remember: the simplest form of disintegrating it is done by the succus entericus. Simplest form of disintegration is done by the succus entericus. So we have for proteins, we have the gastric juice, that is the pepsin. Pepsinogen is converted into pepsin in the presence of hydrochloric acid, we study. So their proteins are converted into polypeptides. Again, pancreatic juice has trypsin, chymotrypsin, importantly. Next, carboxypeptidases A and B, wherein they are again broken down into dipeptides, tripeptides, and polypeptides, amino acids. Now again, through the succus entericus, it is again broken down into amino acids. Amino acids are the simplest form of proteins. Amino acids are the simplest form of proteins. We studied in the previous slide that for carbohydrates, the simplest form is the fructose, glucose, and galactose. Fructose, glucose, and galactose. When it was in these three forms, it was easy to be digested. So similarly, for proteins, when it is in the form of amino acids, When it's in the form of amino acids, it is easy to digest or it's easy to absorb. Proteins are absorbed in the form of amino acids. Okay. Next, lipoamino acids. This is again deep. Lipoamino acids are actively absorbed by sodium cotransport. Dextroamino acids are absorbed by facilitated diffusion. Absorption amino acids is faster in duodenum and jejunum and slower in ileum. So absorption of amino acids is faster in duodenum and jejunum. So one thing to remember, the simplest form of carbohydrate is glucose, fructose, and galactose. Simplest form of protein is amino acids. Next, moving on to lipids. We have in saliva, we have lingual lipase, wherein triglycerides are broken down into fatty acids, 1,2-diacylglycerol. Gastric juice, gastric lipase, it is a weak one, but still triglycerides are broken down. Okay. Now, in pancreatic juice, pancreatic lipase acts as an action on triglycerides and cholesterol is to catalyze, etc. enzymes. They again disintegrate. Again, in Succus intesticus, triglycerides are broken down into fatty acids. Okay. Next. Monoglycerides, cholesterol, and fatty acids enter the cells of intestinal mucosa by simple diffusion. There it goes through facilitated diffusion. In the mucosal cells, most of the monoglycerides are converted into triglycerides. Triglycerides and cholesterol esters are coated with a layer of protein, cholesterol, and phospholipid to form chylomicrons. Chylomicrons are larger in size, hence they enter lymph vessels from there. They are transferred to the blood. So to get these transferred to the blood, they have to be in the form of chylomicrons. They have to be in the form of chylomicrons. And for all this, most of the fats absorbed in the upper part of small intestine. Presence of bile is essential for fat absorption. Presence of bile is essential for fat absorption. Why is that? We studied that the bile salts are essential for the emulsification and also are essential for the absorption. We studied that. Yes, thank you. Any questions are welcome. I understand this, the absorption part of the biomolecules is a little difficult. But yes, the rest part, at least by end of the session, you should be able to tell different parts of the intestine. I will just keep an image open. You have to identify the parts. Identify this part. Where my cursor is, identify that part.
Is that the esophagus?
Perfect. Perfect. This one?
The duodenum?
Perfect. Name the different parts of the stomach. It has 3 parts. I will say.
The middle part is the body.
Very good. Very good. Yeah.
Yes. Antrum is the lower part.
Mm-hmm. Top part is the fundus.
The fundus, yes.
Perfect.
Body. Okay.
So what is this C-shaped structure?
That be the duodenum?
Perfect. Then we have jejunum. Then we have ileum. Ileum continues into sigmoid colon. Sorry, not sigmoid colon, cecum. Yes. Here you can see the appendix, ascending colon, right colic flexure, transverse colon, left colic flexure, colon. Then we have sigmoid colon, rectum, and anus. Yes. Reji Mestri, you are there? Okay, anybody wants, the image is open. Anybody wants to identify the parts of small, large intestine can do it. Mala Singh can give it right.
Okay, Doc. So, okay, just one question. So we have the appendix. The appendix is also on the right hand side.
Perfect.
Okay, so the appendix, and then we come up, okay, to the this is it not the sigmoid
No, it's
colon?
no
The
cecum.
cecum. Okay, cecum. Then we're going up on the right hand side, which is the ascending colon.
Mhm.
Then we're coming to the transverse colon.
Mhm.
And then we're coming down to the descending colon.
Mhm.
And then we come down, and then it's a sigmoid colon, and then it's the rectum and the anus.
Mhm.
Okay, and then on the right hand side, where uh, it turns, that will be the liver,
Perfect.
and on the left hand side will be the spleen.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. So this is the image of the cecum. So accessory organs, we have the salivary glands, liver, and the pancreas, which acts as accessory organs. Yes, any questions are welcome. Okay, so shall I end the session?
Doc, just one question. With diabetes mellitus, okay, what treatment would you recommend where we can help the pancreas sustain itself so that it can produce enough insulin so that people cannot suffer, where we can rectify diabetes mellitus?
That's a question not for me. You have to ask the diabetologist. Oh,
Okay.
one thing is, see, they give medicines wherein insulin is provided, wherein the if the insulin secretion is not correct, or else again medicines are given if the blood sugar level, or if the increased blood sugar level is there, and if it is not used up by the skeletal tissues. Okay, they will identify whether the skeletal tissues are not using up the insulin or the blood sugar, or is it that the insulin is not secreted properly by the pancreas. That will be identified, and the medicines will be planned and given accordingly.
Okay.
See,
Okay.
in case of people who are diabetes and who are having a luxurious lifestyle, who are having loss of activity, in people who are having loss of activity, the skeletal muscles are not able to use up the blood sugar level that is there. So in that, we have to give medicines where the wherein, simple. We always say diabetes mellitus is a disease, is a lifestyle disorder. That is in these conditions where the people are having a lavish lifestyle or a luxurious lifestyle. In that, the medicines are given so that the skeletal muscles use up. In this condition, simple physical activities or physical activities, if you increase, what will happen? The blood sugar level will be taken up by the skeletal muscle, and hence the patient will become all right. Next, if there is any abnormality wherein the insulin is unable to secrete, then at that time, or if the blood sugar levels are not coming into control even with medicines, then that's the level wherein we are giving the insulin injections.
Okay.
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 Fine.
Yeah. Thank you, Doc.
Okay, we'll be ending the session soon.
Okay, Doc, just one more question. If you can maybe get this PDF, by tonight, then we can go through the notes. Then it will
Sure.
make it a bit easier for us. Yeah.
Sure. I'll definitely put a word to Sadananji. He will share it.
Okay.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. Thank you.